What's up, guys? You know who it is. It's your boy Kenny with Jdm Muscle. And guys, this is episode 8 of the LS Swap 240SX. As you can see, we've almost got everything done. Things that we are going to have to do in this video. Like I said, I want to make this a last one. We're going to finish everything up. I need to finish wiring the starter. That's what I'm doing right now. We need to run the last radiator hose at the bottom. I'm going to have to try to figure out what hose will fit for that. After that, we need to run the full Holley ECU. So we're going to have to rewire the whole Holley ECU, plug and play with everything. And then from there, guys, we are going to have to fill it with oil, coolant, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, and of course, we're going to have to re-bleed every little thing too, even down to the brakes, just because we had unhooked brake lines at one time too. So guys, this is going to be a crazy long video, hopefully not too long. We're going to try to get it done. I do have a small trip to California at the same time, but let's shut up and let's get to it. All right, guys, so the biggest thing was figuring out from the SR to the LS what wire is actually going to what. Trying to do a lot of reading on the diagrams. It looks like this one and the second one here are both going to go to the main part of the starter, whereas this is going to go to what triggers it to actually start. So I am going to have to put a new end on there, and then we're going to have to get underneath the car, wire it around the header, and see if we can make it down to the starter. That'll be done, and then it'll be on to everything else. What I'm showing you now is the bottom coolant hose. As you can see, here it is right here, coming down right there. Now, as you can see, this was extremely hard to do. I had bought a bunch of rubber pieces, and I was trying to make everything form from old kits to new kits. I was cutting everything, trying to get it to work. But what I ended up doing was getting on Amazon. They make a flexible, make-your-own coolant hose. Now, even though that sounds easy, guys, it's not, and I'll show you why. I do have mine on. I did measure out the best I could. Still bending it was extremely tough because it's just a small little spot. It's really only 10 inches of hose, but it was very tough to get down into that spot. So you buy the kit offline. It comes in a big piece of metal like this. It is flexible, but it is not easy, especially as you try to do tight bends. It will only bend so tight because it is still metal. So really bending it, that's about as far as you can bend it, and it is just hard to do. Now, it does come with all the proper fittings once you stuff them all in to actually tighten it down onto whatever your coolant hose spot is. But this ended up working for me this time, guys. It was on Amazon. It's a build your own coolant hose. It was extremely tough, but we got it done, so that's one more thing to do. Now let's just finish up the fuel. So let's get on. So as you can see, what I'm doing right now is right here we have the fuel pressure regulator hooked up. So with this fuel pressure regulator, it is actually my fuel filter too. GM does make a version that has both. It is right to 60 pounds, which what the injectors are. Both my fuel lines are over here, so I am going to have to run all new lines. We're going to have to run the one line from this top part right here. We've got all this hose too right here. Here's the other fitting right here behind the coolant hose. So from here, we're just going to have about 11 inches, and that will actually go right across. That way we can have that coolant hose the fuel line all done here. And then the back two are going to have to get ran right over here, and I'll show you a little bit better. Now that we've cut the first fuel line, what we're going to do is we can actually take these both off. And now we can screw them in. Guys, let's remember how easy this is. Once you screw this end off, what we're going to do is slide this over. All right, now that we have it slid over, guys, what we're going to do is insert this all the way in, and then slowly start to screw it all the way in until it starts to bite. Guys, and we're just going to keep tightening it all the way down and on. Which luckily these smaller ones are a little bit easier to tighten, especially by hand. All right, guys, one side's all the way tight. Now let's get the second one ready. Doing the same thing, we're just going to unscrew the two pieces. Put it right on and through. And we just start to insert this in until it bites all the way in. Just like that, guys. Both ends are on. Now we can, all right, guys, let's screw this on the way we need it. Screw that on, then we'll tighten that all the way. Then this next one. All right, guys, and that is one fuel line complete once we tighten it down. Guys, so it is officially time to start getting ready to wire the whole car. So we are going to be running the Terminator X, that is by Holley. I did pick the ECU due to the way I was going to be set up and what I was going to be using. Now the box does come with everything you need in it, from all wiring to more and more wiring. Everything is all labeled, which is extremely nice. All the way to the battery connectors, all the way to the main harness itself. Besides the main harness itself, we do have, of course, a 3.5-inch screen in here as well that I'm going to hook up. Otherwise, guys, I'm going to try to start slow and just slowly set everything up. And, yeah, read the directions the best I can. The nice thing is the directions do go pretty self-explanatory. So just take it slow, read everything. They give you warnings, notes, notices, how to install, how to run everything. If you're running any oxygen sensors, how to run the oxygen sensors. It's telling you all the wiring. It's telling you exactly how to do it, where they're all going to hook to, what they're hooking to and from. So should be pretty easy. We're just going to take our time, go all the way through it. It even shows you how to run the system at the end itself. And then, of course, we have the sweet little 3.5-inch screen that comes with it. That way we can actually tune it on the fly, and I can actually set this up on the dash, and we can actually have that to be seen as well. So nice little Terminator X Max screen. All right, guys, we're in the car running the monitor right now, the 3.5-inch screen. I am going to end up putting it somewhere up on the dash, probably right here. So I am just running that first line, running everything back behind all my switches. That way everything can be hidden. From here, I need to run the ground and power wire. It has to be directly to the battery itself. Guys, reading the directions, here is the power cord itself. It does say, do install the main power and ground directly to the battery. Keep sensor wire away from high voltage or noisy, dirty components and wiring. So I'm going to try to just run this line first. We'll come back to the trunk. I do have my battery located in the trunk. We'll have to clean the trunk up a little bit and figure out how we want to get it wired from here all the way up to the ECU. All right, guys, so the ECU is almost all the way wired up at this point. So I was able to run everything through the 2-inch over there, everything coming up and across, everything going down. I just need to hide it, sort of the first set of injectors, second set of injectors. We've got everything ran up here, ran. Everything is getting ran down here. We're gonna finish up the intake real quick. Then, of course, put this sensor in, this mat sensor. Otherwise, one thing I did want to point out when it came to injectors, running these multi-tech, what I did not think of once I had ordered this kit from Holley was depending on injector style. So my injector style is a little different. Off of Amazon, I did have to buy an adapter. This will plug in here. And then, of course, it goes right down onto my injector itself. So that is one thing I had to wait for part-wise. Otherwise, guys, we need to put the rest of these on. So all the injectors are done. We need to finish up this intake and a little bit of the computer stuff, and we are done.
What are you doing?
All right, guys, so right now what I'm doing is trying to finish up wiring the ECU. So I've got the harness down here. I've got all the wires underneath the dash. Right now it's telling me that the red and white wire, that needs to be ran to ignition. So when I turn the key, it actually gives electrical power to the dash itself and the ECU itself. Now this other one that I'm running from underneath the motor, this is for fuel injectors and fuel pump. So that way every time you turn that system on, it actually turns on the pump and fuel injectors. but they only give about 5 feet of wire. And of course my battery is not underneath the hood itself, so I did have to go buy 12 gauge wire. We are gonna crimp these together, and then I'm gonna run it all the way back to battery, since this is a main one that has to go to battery source itself. So once we do this power wire, I need to find one ground to body, and then I need to wire the one to ignition, and that's wiring done. I had a buddy come over, go over everything on the motor itself. He said everything looks great except for maybe redoing 2 little fuel line spots. So we are still gonna, I think, try to fire it tonight. My intake won't be on, but we can at least have the sensor close enough to read to see what is leaking or what isn't working. I won't have the ECU mounted up yet. I do think that once I have everything wired, I'm just gonna put it right up here so it's always easy to access. Maybe I'll try to put it up under the dash. But as you can see, I've got a lot of wires that still need to be fixed, but we've got everything where we need it. Now it's just tucking everything away. All right, guys, so we are finally done wiring everything. I have not yet actually zip tied or hidden every wire, but it is to the point where now we can start adding everything in. So it's time to finally add oil back into this motor. Pretty exciting home stretch. All right, guys, so now it's time to add in, of course, some .3 brake fluid. We are putting that into our master cylinder, since we did have to, of course, get a new one with that T56. So we are filling it for the first time. I'm gonna have to end up picking up at least another jug. I've never bled a T56, so I don't know how many air bubbles are gonna be in this, especially with it being a new system. So we'll have to pick up a couple more bottles of those. I needed to top off the brakes a little bit. We did have to take a brake line off at one time. Then we still need to do power steering fluid. All right, guys, so it's time to add coolant. So when I bought this Koyo Rad radiator, unfortunately it didn't come with a cap. So I did end up picking up the Skunk 2 Racing cap. Pretty sweet, it does actually fit, which is nice. And I didn't know when you bought a Skunk 2 product, it came in a special little box, and it comes with like a little registration card. So that was pretty sweet. Guys, I want to fill the car and let it sit overnight. That way we can see if any leaks show up from filling the whole system. But yeah, good news is now we are filling coolant. All right, guys, time to add in some power steering fluid so we can turn this bad boy. Slow down a little bit, check it. The nice thing was I was able to fill the radiator last night just to see if there was any leaks. I did have a little bit trickling out, guys. I ended up finding on where you would drain the radiator, I swore I had checked that spot. It was finger tight, so it was just barely dribbling out all night, but enough to make a mess. All right, guys, it is finally time to fill up the transmission with some trans fluid. So luckily mine, because it's not 100% empty, at least I don't think. Typically from empty, it would take 4 quarts, but I don't know what is exactly left in mine. So the first thing I'm gonna pour in to make sure that I can get it all in is gonna be some synchro mesh, just to make sure that when we're shifting, everything is as smooth as possible. So I'm gonna pour this in first, so we can at least get all of this inside. And then from here, guys, like I said, it's not completely empty, so I don't know how much it will take. But let's slowly put this in, let this get down in there. Now there is a fill or drain plug halfway through the transmission on the left side, so the driver's side. That way, if you do need to fill it, I guess, without removing it like I am and putting it in this way, you can do it there. Now I did remove that plug just so I can hear when I do fill it all the way up, it should start coming out that plug. And I do have a drain with a little bucket underneath it. That way when I start hearing it come out, we know it's full. All right, guys, so we had to remove the handbrake. As you can see, I'm gonna try to zoom in a little more. I did have to grind all the way up in here and then basically just kind of pry up all that metal underneath there as far as I could, just to be able to get the 2 front screws on the T56. Otherwise, guys, I do think we're gonna be okay now. It's gonna be close. Shifter's gonna be close to everything, but I do think that we have everything where we need it. Now we're gonna re-bolt the handbrake back on. We'll put the shifter on, guys, and it's time to configure the ECU. Guys, so we are in car, It's time to start tuning the ECU. Now, luckily, they have made instructions extremely easy. We just have to follow. But, you know, the first thing is turning the key over, making sure that everything is correct, making sure that everything's grounded, all the power wires are ran right, and we have no issues. So that's what we're going to do. A little nervous, but let's turn it and see what happens. Well, the good thing is the system is powering up. So I'm going to grab the monitor and start calibrating. So what it's telling us is please run the wizard or low to calibration. So we're going to go through all these settings, guys, and get it all done. All right, guys, so everything is officially done. We've got the screen recording. So it is time. Of course, I don't have a clutch pedal because we haven't bled it, but I can still hit my start button. So let's see if we can start, because we are up on jack stands. Wonder if it's not letting me start because they switch on the clutch pedal. Well, guys, as you can see with that last clip, the car died. I don't know really exactly what's going on. We have gone through the whole thing with a multimeter. Everything that should have 12 volts to it has 12 volts to it. Grounds are all good. We rechecked those. The Holley ECU is extremely easy. It's got 2 powers and a negative. Those are hooked up exactly the way they said. We've contacted Holley. They walked us through it. And it sounds like at this point, maybe the ECU is just bad. It was able to fire up. I was able to go all the way through the 3.5-inch screen, upload everything that I needed to. But as soon as we hit that push button, everything died. Now, Holley said, unplug the ECU, try to start the car. Guess what? Car tried to fire, so we had to get off it real quick so it doesn't turn all the way over, since the ECU wasn't there to actually give any idea of what should be going on. So at this point, Holley did send me a shipping label to ship it back to them, 5 to 7 day turnaround. So I'm really gonna try to get this going, guys. I know I promised to be started in this video. Yes, it kind of started, but it's not running. So let's get the ECU back to Holley, whether we have to get a new one or whatever it may be. I guess this gives me the time to just kind of wire, plug everything, play with it, and hide every little thing until the ECU comes in. So guys, this is where I'm going to end this one. Otherwise, I hope you like these videos. Continue to support, hit that like button, subscribe. G Fuel, as always, code Jdm Muscle, are still running the Accelera tires on the 350Z. So peace out, and until next video, we'll get it running.